Oh boy. Brian, you know what we've got out there in the cult of Cornette, don't you? Smart people.
Yes, good people.
We got smart listeners, and they have come in again since today's topic is the ratings and the ratings dropping and what shows are going to be dropping. Who knows what the fuck is going to go on? I'm not going to give this fellow's name because he's given us confidential information here, and this could be some kind of I Spy bullshit where they'll drop a poison pill in his martini or something if they find out that he's stooging. But we have another update on this new ratings methodology and et cetera, from one of the knowledgeable listeners out there in the cult of Cornette. And he said, because remember I had asked you, because I'm sick of this whole shit already, but I'd asked you, can they figure like the old numbers and then the new numbers so that we get both and we see how they would compare going forward? Well, it's the new number is this, but the old number, it would have been that, right? I asked you that. You didn't know.
Right.
Because you disappoint me all the time with things like that.
Hey.
But this guy knew. And he said, long story short, there is no way to reverse engineer Nielsen's old viewership counts using the new methodology and vice versa. So the answer is no. But this is something that has occurred throughout 2025, the new methodology with Nielsen, ComScore, and even Crossix and IQVIA switching up their household viewership methodology. They are all black boxes that take known individuals within their panel along with digital signals, parenthetically, actual measurable views on channels like online video and connected TVs to extrapolate viewership. OLV and CTV data is especially valuable, and you'll find all big players have agreements with Samsung, Roku, and other tabletop device services that aren't walled gardens. Example being Apple TV to aid in calculating viewership. Brian, did you get that so far?
I mean, the gist, maybe. There's a lot there.
This is more complicated than it used to be. But he goes on, the shift across all these third-party measurement platforms is due to them being able to increase the resolution, to use a video analogy, of households to better identify individuals within said households using shared devices and engaging in either multi-screen and or multi-device viewing. Using a combination of machine learning and anonymized clean room identity matching that doesn't run afoul of privacy laws, they now claim they are able to better project viewership and know, for example, if it was Jim or Harley Quinn in the room watching The Price is Right. Whether it be streaming or broadcast media, Nielsen, digital publications and .coms, ComScore, Global Web Index, or the pharma industry, that's IQVIA and Crossix, the measurement they provide is always best taken directionally and not as an exact count. See, now this is something we need to clarify this business. And then he sent us a follow-up email. And this is a couple of clarifications, and then, Brian, we'll discuss it for just us small-town bird lawyers. He says the actual platforms themselves, Netflix, Disney, Apple TV, etc., having seen the data myself, all know the exact counts of streams and plays, but don't share it for a myriad of reasons. Nielsen and the others I mentioned use proxy data signals via a data agreement with Roku, Samsung, and nearly all smart TV providers to obtain those proxy signals anonymously and use that coupled with their known panel to extrapolate viewership. And there's new third-party measurement platforms claiming to have better anonymized clean room matching, identification resolution, or data sources emerging almost daily. The TVs are watching you. The telephones are watching you. They are listening in to whatever the fuck we're doing. So they can hear when I say, Stacy, don't ever buy this goddamn Dial soap again. Or whatever the fuck. Do you understand any of this?
Do you have a problem with Dial soap?
I'm just using that as a for instance. How can they be this minute with this shit unless all these devices that we're bringing in my refrigerator tells the goddamn television when the fucking filter on the water thing is out, or the stove tells the goddamn Stacy's phone when it's preheated. What the fuck are they telling other people?
Yeah, wait until AI starts telling all of this to kill you. That's going to be the real scary thing. It's interesting, and I have to dive in deeper. We've received a lot of emails, more than I thought we would, from people who either work for catch-all broadcasting, or people who actually work at Nielsen. A few people have said, do not use my name, no matter what. Don't use this information. But if you do, don't use my name.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a lot of people out there, and one of the things you just said is something I've heard from everyone, and I've been hearing it for a while. Streaming numbers are known by the streamers. The idea that Warner Brothers Discovery and Max don't know the AEW numbers, and therefore Tony doesn't know what they are, to me is nonsense. And to everyone who I've heard from, and again, we've heard from everyone from people that work at Nielsen, to people that are television executives, and they've called bullshit on this. This new ratings methodology, as we've called it, it doesn't take Max into effect or into account for the AEW Dynamite number. We don't know what that number is because that number has never been released. And like the email said, it's to any streaming platform's benefit to not release those numbers if you don't have to. Because if you close your eyes and think about it, more people probably think things have a higher viewership than a lower viewership. Did I answer any of your questions? I'm not even sure.
Yes. Well, that's the thing, is that there has been a public rating system for broadcast television and or cable television as it's existed. And back when the numbers were phenomenal and nobody needed to be embarrassed. But now think about these streaming services, besides the fact that, yes, they are airing first run programming and or the sports or whatever. But if you go on any of the streaming service, there is countless movies, countless TV shows, countless gaga, right? That's what drives me crazy about it, is you can't even go through all the shit and there's no just list. The point being, a lot of people cannot be watching the majority of that content, just mathematically. With the number of streaming services and the number of options they have on each one, there ain't enough people. You see what I'm saying here? So if they had 3 or 4 major shows that were getting numbers that were, brag worthy, but with it comes releasing numbers of, when it gets down to 27 people watch this or whatever, that would be somewhat embarrassing, right? So I think that's why the proprietary info is what they call it in the business world, right? That's our proprietary information. That's why they don't brag about a few things, because they'd have to suffer about the majority of stuff. Am I crazy?
Yeah, but I don't know if you're necessarily crazy about all this.
Oh, something at least.
Again, it all goes to going back to the very beginning, the idea of using whatever method Nielsen uses as a barometer, as something that's supposed to tell us or give us a representation of what the viewership really is. It's, to me, never ever been a reasonable way that makes sense The only thing that makes it work is that the advertisers honor it. And that's what the advertisers are going on. But beyond that,
well,
the idea one family in a neighborhood is going to be somehow a representation of any other family in that neighborhood is ridiculous.
Well, but here's the thing that was, besides the fact that the advertisers went on it, the other thing that was at least consistent about it was the same system being applied to everything, because it was television. There was one kind of television, and it was the same system being applied. And even if occasionally in Dubuque, if they had no wrestling fans with boxes, the ratings may suffer. It would statistically be made up for. Every program was being judged in the same way on the same kind of platforms, so it was somewhat even Steven. But now, for whatever reason that, again, nobody can determine, that nobody's come up with a good answer for, pro wrestling programs under this new system are being disproportionately reduced, harmed, zapped, like 20% or whatever, or much more than almost any other program. And I think, as we mentioned at the top of our show, they were thinking that it would help the NFL, the new system. And everybody was happy about that because everybody makes tons of money off of that. So, yeah. And that so far there's stations that are up, stations that are down, shows that are up, shows that are down, but nothing to the disproportionate level is down as far as the wrestling shows. And this is what we're trying to figure out, what's the gig here, Slick?
And something to take into the equation, if we look at the last 10 to 15 years, we've talked in the past about, for a variety of reasons, it's not as easy for a kid today to become a wrestling fan as it was when I was a kid or when you were a kid.
Yeah.
I had wrestling on Saturday mornings and Sunday mornings at noon, or 10 a.m. sometimes on Saturday. WWF syndicated TV. Then there was other stuff, but that was like kids' television time. Kids' cartoons were on Channel 2, Channel 4, Channel 5, Channel 7, Channel 9. I think Channel 11 even had something. So it was all kids stuff, and then Channel 5 would go to wrestling, and I watched it. Kids don't have that today. Kids don't have Saturday morning cartoons. That's a dead thing. And kids don't have weekend wrestling shows they can watch while their parents are still getting up and getting together. You know what I mean? So the kids who discover wrestling and become wrestling fans today either see a primetime show on cable, or I guess network when SmackDown was on Fox. That's Friday night. You're either seeing that or you're seeing clips somewhere else. So I've always wondered how that would affect the fan base going forward. So again, we're talking the last 10 to 15 years. And then, let me just finish with this. We know what we see with the ratings, and we know what traditionally is part of the wrestling audience, and that, going back to the very beginning even, you can focus on young people. There's always been a dedicated older wrestling audience, and it's only grown because of the amount of people that grew up, like we just described, watching wrestling on weekend mornings, having it there, looking forward to it. If you grew up in the 80s with that, or the 90s even, there's a chance that you still get pulled in by wrestling and check it out. Do your kids. And what would make your kids get pulled in? So these ratings, it doesn't show any key demo growth for wrestling. You have to assume that, if a kid wants to watch AEW, they're on Max. They wouldn't even go to cable TV. And I think in a lot of ways that is a fair assumption. But it's not a fair assumption that there's a lot of kids watching it.
And in the same vein of what you're saying, but in a different avenue that leads to the same destination, the parents that used to pretty much bring their kids into wrestling, they were watching the show every weekend, and the kids had to watch it whether they liked it or not, unless they wanted to go outside or whatever, as well as we've talked about it before, in the territory days, 60s, 70s, 80s, and it was still a thing into the 90s, where families would go, or a guy would take his kids. It used to be grandmothers, and I saw 3 generations at the Louisville Gardens, but there was still some kind of family involvement where the guy had grown up going to the matches, so now he's taking his kid, and who can afford that? Because as we've been talking about the prices, had they priced themselves out of the family market, the good thing was when the 11-year-old kid went with dad, then the 11-year-old kid got in a habit and grew up in the same fashion, and also started watching the television and liking it rather than just having to be in the room when it was on. So that was a way of cultivating the fans. And wrestling cultivated fans by the millions for 100 years because there was so much local television, live match exposure. If people wanted to go, they could go. And that's the way that group kept, it ebbed and flowed over time depending on how hot the business was, but it was always pretty fucking large. And that's all shrunken.
Yeah, for the guy that comes home on a Monday night's going to watch Raw for over 2 hours, do their kids watch with them? Or are their kids watching some guy stream themselves play Minecraft on YouTube? It's a tough thing. I don't know how much of the young audience is there. And also you think...
And it used to be that the parents would also say, hey, come watch wrestling. Here's a blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And encourage instead of, hey, get lost. We're watching wrestling. And, it would make the tent bigger.
The other thing that I've seen from my own kids and some of their friends who have been here at different times, some of the complaints we make, diehard wrestling fans don't think it's as bad, and people who aren't wrestling fans see it even worse than we do. When we say things like WWE, the entrances take forever and nothing happens, we're saying that as wrestling fans. People who aren't wrestling fans who, again, sit down and watch SmackDown for a few minutes, they may think it's more boring than that. People who see AEW and they say, neither one of these two guys in this match look like a star and this match is going forever, that's magnified by people who aren't wrestling fans who see it. So I think, again, it may be a long-term issue. We're talking about ratings, but a longer-term issue, the amount of people that become wrestling fans. There'll always be new wrestling fans. There'll always be wrestling fans. But I just don't know if you're going to gain as many as you had previously in the past.
Well, and we've concentrated on AEW when talking about, deep shit, bad moons rising, because Tony's, his TV deal is that's his, big Thanksgiving turkey there. And the WWE, they've got streaming this and streaming that and streaming the other thing. I've got a goddamn list written down of where to watch these programs now. We've talked about it. It's ridiculous. But point is, they don't have to depend on any one thing, but their numbers are still getting hit too, at least on television. But that's what I'm saying. We've concentrated on AEW, but the SmackDown ratings, which SmackDown and NXT are the only 2 major shows they have now that are going to be subject to this new formula, right? Because the others are on the streaming where they keep it secret and lock it up in the goddamn basement at Fort Knox, right?
For now. I mean, we get Netflix numbers, and, there's been a lot of focus, and at some point we probably should dive into it and do a segment, it won't be today, about Raw on Netflix and the realities that we're seeing there. SmackDown's going to be affected. AEW is going to be affected. NXT has been affected.
Yeah, but the Netflix numbers they're not under this system, though. They're right. The Netflix numbers that Netflix says, here's our numbers, and, trust us. We're here to help. But the new system, it's going to be AEW's television shows, Collision and Dynamite and NXT and SmackDown. On what are they on these days? God damn it, SmackDown. USA.
CW. Oh, no, SmackDown. SmackDown. Excuse me, USA, yes.
Yes. That's the ones that's going to be figured in the new rating system. So with that being said, again, Uncle Dave has taken a swing at analyzing this situation. And, when there's numbers involved, Dave loves it. And your head hurts and your eyes desperately want to be bleached by the time you get halfway. He did like 3 pages on it. And Thurston Howell III, he's a clinical minded fellow too, but I'm again just a small town bird lawyer, Brian. So whatever the methodology is and whatever the difference is and whatever demographics that are lacking, the bottom line is most people out there just want to know SmackDown is apparently losing about 200,000 people or more from its old numbers to its new numbers with this system. So they're getting walloped, just like Tony Khan, just maybe not as big a percentage. Is that what I'm hearing?
Again, I don't know the percentages, but SmackDown has taken a wallop since the new ratings methodology went into effect. And, we know what Raw was doing on USA. We know what SmackDown had been doing. We also know that WWE TV is the opposite of hot right now. It's not must-see TV. And yeah, SmackDown, I was just editing earlier today, the last review we did of SmackDown. We haven't been saying good things about SmackDown. It's not a good show.
No, there's a few good things on a long, long show. But the percentage, let's just figure this in our head. SmackDown has been doing, between 1.2, 1.4 million folks on USA Network, right? On the old method. And then suddenly the new method comes in and they dropped about a couple of 100,000 people. And 200,000 as a percentage of 1.2 million, let's say. That's one fucking divide by 3, carry the 2. What's the percentage of that? What are these percentages, Brian?
I don't know.
Well, I'm asking you. Why don't you know?
Well, why don't you know? You have it in front of you.
Because you're not the one asking me. I'm asking.
I don't know.
It would be. Well, 200,000 is 20% of a million. So it'd be about 16 or 17% of 1.2 million. But now when Dynamite was doing around 600,000, give or take, and all of a sudden it's like 400 and something. Well, they've lost, is that 20% or 18%? It's somewhere around the same thing. So it's wrestling. See, the percentages, when you do the math in an exact fashion like that, you can't argue with the numbers. The point is, SmackDown's getting slapped around too. And again, nobody knows why and can explain it, but this isn't happening on other programming that has been called anybody's attention at this point. And nobody, because I think the phrase was that if this was happening to every television program on the air under the new methodology, that people would be fucking storming the goddamn gates out there in TV land, because it would be costing billions and billions and billions of dollars.
Yeah. And again, wrestling has been attractive. AEW is supposed to be attractive to Warner Brothers Discovery because of the key demo number, because of the younger audience they could bring in for the television show, not even talking about Max. They're not there. And I don't know how much of that's an AEW problem versus a wrestling problem. The young audience is simply not there in traditional cable or broadcast. Then you're talking about YouTube. I just saw the AJ, are the Gardeners here? Yeah, the Gardeners are here. God damn it. I just saw the CM Punk AJ.
Well, tell them daggum Gardeners, is it Ava and her new husband? Tell them to just turn around and come to dinner tomorrow.
It's Julio and the gang. The AJ Lee video, her return promo or whatever it was, did like 5 million views on YouTube. And I actually thought I thought it would have been higher. But then, now they're right behind me. But it was 5 million views. And that's how a lot of people saw that. If 1 million people, give or take, watch SmackDown, and then 5 million people watch the clip from the main segment on SmackDown, that's not even counting other social media, that's not even counting anything else. It's a good audience, but you have to think that's a younger audience more than likely than the people watching SmackDown, the people picking. They're actually picking which clips they want to watch from the show.
Well, that just ain't fair. Somebody's got to do so. I think they ought to come up with a new system, Brian. All righty. Well, we will continue to monitor this ongoing situation also. But you know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking with all these numbers, we got to sit down with calculators. We got to get these numbers in our heads, because not only are we going to need to cover it for in the course of our, employment here, Brian, as erstwhile commentators on wrestling, but also we need to have the computers or the calculators so that we can join up with our friends at Prize Picks. Because if you know numbers, well, then you can just pick some and you'll actually make some money. Because with Prize Pick, you download the Prize Picks app. That's the first thing you got to do. If you don't do that, well, the rest of this information is going to be absolutely no good to you. So just do that. We'll wait. Hold on. Okay. Now that you've got that, Brian Prize Picks is the only... Stop it now. Brian Prize Picks is the only app that offers stacks, meaning you can pick the same player up to 3 times in the same lineup. You want to pick more on Josh Allen's pass yards, rush yards, and touchdowns? Now you can pick all of them in the same lineup. Only on Prize Picks. I bet Josh Allen won't be the first guy from the NFL to be in a lineup. But if you could pick the same player 3 times, that almost sounds like cheating, doesn't it? For heaven's sake. Well, if they'll let you get away with it, I get these Prize Picks, folks, they're just suckers. And you can follow other Prize Picks players directly on the app and copy their lineups in one click. See, again, they're encouraging plagiarism. If you copy their lineup, do you get their money? I guess steal their money. Follow these other sappy Prize Picks players around and then pop their pockets and steal their booty, their pirate booty. And whether it's a friend, a celebrity partner, or someone or a celebrity lookalike, possibly. If somebody looks like Gilda Radner, just copy their shit. Or if it's just some guy walking down the road and you say, he looks like he knows what he's doing, I'm going to look over his shoulder and just get his pics off his screen of his phone.
Yeah, this is a weird example. Have your own pics.
Well, you can do it all here. They'll let you get away with all of this stuff. Just pick other people's pics. And then hit the follow button and check out every lineup they create in the new feed tab on Prize Pick.
That's right. Perfect.
Yes. Hit the follow button and check out every lineup they create in the new feed tab on Prize Picks. There's a lot of peas popping there. But how you play is up to you. They are not judgmental. You can be nude while you do this, ladies and gentlemen, possibly even aroused or slathering yourself in baby oil.
Again,
and it says if you want flexibility, and right there, that means you're getting into some kinky shit. Choose Flex Play, where people will come over and play with you while they flex and you get into certain positions that require
not how it works.
Flexibility.
Minimal corrections would be appreciated. The gardeners are here. Let's try to be professional and maybe a bit funky and get to that promo code.
Okie dokie. Since the gardeners are running Brian down, download the Prize Picks app today and use the code JCE to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That is code JCE to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right, and it's also good to have Brian last on mute with horrible distracting noise in the background. So I can also say, now, if you want Prize Picks to send over a hoochie mama, well, then they...
Oh, man. Prize Picks. What a great deal. Check it out today one more time, Jim. Oh, they're coming back. What's that promo code?
JCE!